Good morning again, students. This is now moving on to session 3 or chapter 3, the internal organization as opposed to the external organization which we dealt with last time. And in this chapter we're going to look at various aspects of what's going on in the world of business from an internal point of view. So if we look at slide number 4, you will see a sequence of events there. So we have resources that are involved in the business itself, in the company, and these are tangible or intangible resources, and we'll talk about those and define them in a few moments. We then look at their capabilities. What's the capability of the company itself or the organization? What are its core competencies? And when we're looking at discovering the core competencies, how do they impact upon sustainable advantages for the company or value chain analysis for the company? Then we look at its competitive advantages, and we look at the strategic competitiveness of the company and see how do they all come together and how do they impact upon the business from a strategic point of view. So if we look at corporations today, companies like Coca-Cola, Goldman Sachs, Sony Corporation, Nike, McDonald's, Adidas, etc., all of them have value-creating strategies using their unique resources, capabilities, and core competencies. And every company has to focus on these value-adding strategies or value-creating strategies. Because how are we going to add value to our business? What are activities or initiatives we can take that's going to add further value and increase our capabilities based on our core competencies? So how do we achieve a sustainable competitive advantage over our competition? And if we can't do that, then we're not going to stay in business. Literally, if you want to stay in business and be successful, you have to remain competitive, you have to achieve above average returns on investment. If you can't do either of those two, you will go out of business. It doesn't matter how successful you are today. These are fundamental to the success and long-term survival of your business. So you must remain competitive and you must achieve greater returns on investment than the average. So some of the advantage factors, competitive advantages that you have is the obsolescence of core competencies. Value creation is based upon your core competencies. How are those working in the environment today? You're in a competitive working environment, you're in a competitive economic environment, so there are environmental changes occurring all around you. These are socio-political, economic, etc., all impacting. So what's the obsolescence of your core competencies? How sustainable are they? Or are they becoming, or have to become obsolete? There's the availability of substitute for the core competence. To what extent our competitors use different core competencies to overcome value created by the original core competencies. And lastly, the immutability of the core competence, or the abilities of competitors to develop the same core competence. So if you have a core competence which is giving you a competitive advantage over your competitors, how sustainable are those? Or are they going to be overcome by your competitors in the future? So these are some of the things that you need to look at from the point of view of maintaining sustainability and maintaining a competitive advantage. So the challenge of analyzing the internal organization is to deal with things like uncertainty. What's the uncertainty in the marketplace, in the technology, in the environment that you're working in? How complex is that? Is it simple, is it straightforward, or is it very complicated? And then there's the intra-organizational conflict. What are the conflicts that occur within an organization, let's say between the finance department and the production department, or between the production department and the engineering department, or between the marketing department and the sales department. All of these generate conflict by definition, and all of them is normal that this conflict will occur. It's the management of that conflict that matters most. So if we look at our resources, capabilities and core competence, slide 21, we have tangible resources. The tangible resources are things such as our financial resources, our ability to borrow, the capacity to borrow, our organizational resources such as its formal reporting structure and systems, the organizational chart if you like. And then it's the physical resources such as where are we located? Are we in a good location? Are we close to our customers? Are we distant from our customers? Are we close to our raw material suppliers? And then there's technological resources such as patents and trademarks and so on. Do we have all of those under wraps? Have we registered our patents internationally? Do we have trademarks which are registered as well? And then we have the intangible resources, which are our human resources, such as the knowledge, the trust, the managerial capabilities that we have within our staff, our innovative resources, such as our scientific capabilities and capacities to innovate. Have we got that? And lastly, our reputational resources. What's the reputation of the firm? What's the reputation of this organization with its customers, in the marketplace, etc.? So when we look at these intangible and tangible resources, we can limit the verbiage to FOPT for tangible resources. FOPT refers to financial, organizational, physical and technological. And then when we're looking at intangible resources, we look at HIR, the human resources, the innovative resources and our reputation resources. So these are easy ways to remember what those tangible and intangible resources are all about. Then we're getting into the capabilities of the company. A firm's capabilities represent its capacity to integrate individual firm resources to achieve a desired objective. So these don't emerge quickly, they emerge over time. They're long-term. So the knowledge possessed by the firm's human capital may be one of the most significant sources of a firm's competitive advantage because it represents everything that the firm has learned. So we look at Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had a certain amount of knowledge, but he also had the ability to create new knowledge and be innovative all the time. This is how Apple became such a successful company. If you look at Microsoft and Bill Gates, how does he individually impact upon the company, and how are his innovative thinking and skills and so on able to maintain a competitive advantage over others in that industry. And then we look at Richard Branson in the case of Virgin Airlines and Virgin Media, Virgin Studios and so on. Richard has an amazing capacity for innovation and entrepreneurship. And then if you look at Ryanair and Michael Ryan in Ireland, with Ryanair, which is one of the largest airline companies in Europe, Michael Ryan is a farmer. He does sheep farming and cattle farming and also breeds horses. So he's involved in the racing industry in Ireland, but he also runs Ryanair, which is the most successful airline in Europe. And in fact, some would argue is one of the most successful airlines in the world. But Michael Ryan has a capacity to manage his company in a way that keeps it innovative and keeps it moving forward when other people are falling back. So he has taken many initiatives to ensure the survival of Ryanair and the successful growth and development of Ryanair. So if we're looking at criteria for sustainable strategic capabilities, what are the 4 core competencies that impact upon every company? And they're based upon 4 terms. One is valuable. So what's valuable about you? What's valuable about your company? What's valuable about your country? You can look at it from a personal point of view, you can look at it from a national point of view. So what's valuable about a company? What's rare about your company? What's rare about you as an individual? How are you so different from everybody else? And then what capacities that you have which would be costly to imitate. So if somebody else wants to imitate what you have, how costly is that going to be? Can they replicate what you have, or do they not have the ability to do that? And then lastly, is what's not substitutable. How can we not substitute you for somebody else? So if you take, for example, you and your girlfriend or your boyfriend. What's valuable about your girlfriend or your boyfriend? What's rare about them? What's costly to imitate about them? And what's not substitutable about them? And if you look at a parent with their son or daughter, they can look at those 4 terms as well. What's valuable about my son? What's valuable about my daughter? What's rare about them? What would be costly to imitate them? And what's not substitutable about them? I'm not going to give up my son for some other guy. I'm not going to give up my daughter for some other girl because they're not substitutable. So what makes that happen? What is the characteristics or are the characteristics of somebody who is non-substitutable? So when you look at core competencies in any company, you can look at those 4 dimensions. Valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable. Each of those terms are defined on slide number 27. And then we have the basic value chain. So if you look at an organization, there are 2 dimensions. There's the primary activities represent the traditional line activities such as inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and the services provided. And then there's the support activities are represented by the firm's staff activities and include its financial infrastructure, human resource management, the practices it has, the technological development, and the procurement activities. So these are 2 essential components of the value chain: primary activities and support activities.